guys, and welcome back. This is for the final installment of a series titled Lessons from the Church Without a Building. We talked about in the first lesson, we talked about the mindset of fear, moving from fear to Jesus. Then we went from that to talking about action, taking action during this time, especially using creativity in a way to reach out to people and show them God's love. And now we're going to talk about something kind of different from the things we talked about in the past, but keep with me, I promise. It'll kind of make sense towards the end. We're going to talk about waiting. And you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, we already talk, or at least we already are waiting. We're waiting for this virus to go away. We're waiting to go back to work, waiting to go hang out with our friends and family, waiting to go back to school. Waiting is pretty much our entire life at this moment. What do you mean? And so that's what I mean by that. Waiting was something actually very common, especially with Jesus and during the first century of the church and those formative years. There's a lot of waiting going on in that environment, but their waiting had more weight to it. They had a purpose to within what they waited for. And they had an example to sort of go off that, like, how is one supposed to wait? And the example is obviously left by Jesus, but the one I want to give to y'all takes place in Luke chapter 22. And to back up just for a second, Jesus has done this multiple times. He goes into multiple periods of waiting, but all of them sort of had a purpose. In Luke chapter 22, we'll start in verse 39. It reads, "He went out and made his way as usual to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he told them, 'Pray that you may not fall into temptation.' Then he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and began to pray," kind of social distancing there. And he said, "Father, if you are willing to take this cup away from me, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared to him, strengthening him. Being in anguish, he prayed more fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he got up from prayer and came to the disciples, he found them sleeping, exhausted from their grief. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray so that you won't fall into temptation." Jesus was in a period of waiting. He was waiting to be taken away. He was waiting to be crucified. He knew what was coming, but he used that time specifically to glorify God. He spent that time to separate himself from others, from distractions around the world, and devote himself to prayer to God. And we see this reflected in the same manner in multiple instances throughout the apostles, throughout the beginning of the New Testament church, the disciples and everything. We see in Acts 2 that they're told to wait for Jesus, or wait for Jesus' promise in Jerusalem, and they received that. And then furthermore, farther along in chapter 2 of Acts, we have sort of the first church gathering. And we see them in verse 43 saying, "Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. Now all the believers were together, held things in common. They sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple, broke bread from house to house. They ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor to all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved." So I know you're probably thinking, okay, Coleman, they're not really waiting for anything. Like, what are they waiting for? They're sitting there hanging out with each other, enjoying each other's company, stuff that I can't even do right now. But here's the thing, they still are in this environment, this chaotic environment, where the people that they loved and were friends with beforehand are now their enemies. They're being hunted down by a government that did not want them there. They're waiting for that period of turmoil, tribulation, of persecution to pass. They're waiting for Christ's return. And yet they spent that period of waiting rejoicing, devoting themselves to prayer, to thanksgiving, to loving one another. So my challenge to you in this period of sort of forced waiting, this isolation that we're put in from each other, I challenge you to think of ways you can devote yourself to God. Whether that's through prayer, increasing your prayer life, increasing your studies. Just know God on a personal level. Thank you guys. I hope you're doing well. I appreciate you all for tuning into my quick little lesson that we've been doing every week. And we will start up a new series here next Thursday. Next Friday is when I send these out. But I can't wait to see you all next Monday for the Monday game night. Feel free to invite a friend or whatnot. But love you all. Miss y'all. Have a good week. Bye.